What is up, Internet? It is Scott Payne, and I am going to solve all your PMP problems today. All of them, right? We're going to be a quick thing. Today's focus is all about the new PMP, the PMBOK, and how it affects the PMP exam. If you haven't seen it, yesterday, I went live with a bunch of awesome people. Lee Lambert, Gina, Alejandra, those are from PMI, and we talked in depth about the PMP exam and how it's affected by the new PMBOK. So right now, as we get live and as we have people on there, what I'd like you to do is drop your questions in the chat. Tell me what kind of questions you have, what questions you have related to the PMP exam and the new PMBOK, anything, and we're going to go through it. And then we're probably going to go through some questions. So right off the bat, who we got in the chat? Throw something in the chat. What's up? Hey, Job said, great job yesterday. Thanks for that, Joe. All right, man. Any other questions, Joe? Drop them down below, PMP or otherwise, and I'll hit it up. So for everybody who wasn't, it is a new edition, and it's actually awesome. I'm going to go do another episode where I walk through in depth what the differences are, how it goes down. I'll walk you at granular detail through all the everything you need to know so that you can internalize it, use it, get up to speed, and you don't have to be scared. Now, that's the big thing here. You don't have to be scared of the new PMBOK, right? Because I asked some very, very, very specific questions as I pull up the questions that I asked for the people who control the content, control the PMP exam. We talked to Lee Lambert, who's been with the PMP since the beginning. And we asked some very, very big questions. And the big question that we asked right now at the front was, what are the big changes to the new PMBOK? And they're significant and they're awesome as we think through it. And like I said, I'm going to go super deep. The biggest change, and this is what you really need to care about, is that they're making a transition from just processes or IDOs or a lot of these things that a lot of you out there think are the bee's knees and everything you need to focus. I need to memorize all this stuff. You don't, right? What they're focusing on is, instead of, they're talking about outcomes, not just outputs. Now, what does that mean? It means let's think about the value that we're trying to deliver in a project, and let's work on that. And let's design our projects and tailor it and organize it in the best way possible to get to those outcomes. How do I organize our teams? How do we use all the different methodologies in the right way? How do we get to the outcomes that we want? Not just being a robot and doing outputs. Now, that shouldn't be a surprise to any of you, because that's what I've been ranting about a lot. Now, somebody asked, how important is memorizing the process grids in IDO? That's a good question, Joe, because what I just talked about was, hey, PMI in the PMBOK is talking more about the outcomes versus the outputs. Now, the first question you might ask is, like Joe says down there, do I have to memorize the process grid in the IDOs? Well, even before the PMBOK change, my answer would be the same. No, you don't memorize it, Joe, and everybody out there. Memorizing is the wrong way to think about it and look at it. Now, if we have that 49 processes broke down, what you really need to see is that when you look at it initially, it's just a bunch of words. Gosh, so confusing. And people tell you, use acronyms, use these little tricks. They're lying. They don't know what they're talking about. What that picture really is a manifestation of a process that is used to go through that. The normal actions that one takes to solve the problems that are inherent in all the projects that we lead. So if we think about the beginning, we're saying, like, what are we trying to do at the beginning of a project? We don't have to memorize that. All we talk about, Joe, is that we say, at the beginning of the project, we have to get alignment with our sponsor, with the person that's paying us, that we are doing the bidding for, to say, what are we trying to accomplish? To make sure that they are, aligning the effort to a reasonable scope, that we understand, that we can start to build consensus across the organization, that we can define what's important, all those things. So at the beginning, do we have to memorize, develop project charter? No, we have to know about what we have to do there. What is the why? What are the problems that we're trying to solve? And what are the problems that we could cause later by not being tight in our game early on? So memorizing? Absolutely not. What you should do is look at it like your normal life. You should look at that chart and say, how can I make that come alive? Because there are patterns in there. In a flows video that I did out there, I just broke down, here's how I see it. Here's where the value is. Here's what this means. And so as I rant, randomly for Joe here, keep the questions coming, Joe, because it's a good one, dude. What we want to do. And if you really want to be successful on the exam, like we've only had 2 people fail the new exam. How crazy is that? 160 something have taken it. Got another 180 taking it in the next month or so. We've only had 2 fail. Isn't that crazy? It's not because the exam's easy. Like we just heard from Alejandro, it's equal hard as it was. It's because of how we look at it. So if you want to get better, look at it like it's yours. Treat it like it's your money. This is your project. So as you go through, ask, what is the purpose of each process? And some of you might ask right off the bat, do processes even exist anymore? Because the new PMBOK, it just talks about the outputs and the principles and all these things. Well, the way I want you to organize it in your brain is that, let me just pull up the question so we can see it as we go through. Keep the questions coming, man. Do processes still matter, right? So the processes still matter? Absolutely, they matter in the new PMBOK world for a couple different reasons. Just because they released a new PMBOK, did the world of project management change? No. Waterfall projects, agile philosophy, the manifesto, hybrid, companies trying to do their best to deliver value. Has any of that changed? No. It's just, an organization, a distillation to help people understand a bigger picture. It's a formation of mental models. Okay. And so do processes matter? Yes. And in the new PMBOK does not eliminate. It doesn't say take the old PMBOK and throw it out. It doesn't say that. What it says is, based on the nature of the project, we recommend you choose the best mix of how you're going to do this. And processes for a lot of projects work really well to think through. Like what kind, right? Kind that are like heavy planning, really detailed, infrastructure, those kind of things. We need a disciplined, upfront, heavy planning initially project. Now, things with a lot of ambiguity, agile type, we got to go a different direction. Maybe all the processes aren't germane, but the processes still exist, just how you use them. That goes back to the same thing as how do we bring ourselves to the game? All right. Ooh, yes. My next question. There you go. That hopefully that is. Yeah, 48 hours a day. What's your priority? Ooh, 24 hours. Marcus, I already got you, brother. Do they even ask about processes now? Joe asked on the exam. Yes, they ask about them. Joe and Marcus, keep the questions coming. I'm loving it, dude. So, yes. What did she say yesterday, Alejandro? What did she say? She said the exam is based off the content outline. And the content outline hasn't changed after January 2nd. So half the exam is waterfall, half is agile. And then as we get in there, it's split up into hybrid and agile. And really, it's not going to ask you, if you look and you read questions on the internet, free questions, be wary, right? But if you get good questions, the good ones are never going to ask you, what process is this? Or anything like that. Nah. The good questions are going to ask you, you're in a situation, you have an issue, it's going to provide some context. Good questions put some pressure on you. Good questions make you feel a little sweaty, make you feel a little nervous, make you like, oh God, if I was in this spot, I don't know what I'd do. That's how you know you're reading good questions. They don't have to be long. They can be, brief, but really impactful. But they create a cliffhanger for you and they make you think. They make you think about where you are. That's what you need to think about, where you are in the process. You got to ask yourself, what kind of problem am I facing? What kind of environment is there? What's the root cause? And then boom, what would I do? Never think about the answers before the question. Like the answers are there. They'll be there. You got to use your mind. So all these people out in TV land and internet land that are telling you all these tricks and tips on passing questions, like, they don't know what they're talking about. They haven't lived the outputs of their efforts. They haven't seen and dealt with, like, how many people succeed, how many failed, how many students can pass tests. If you think about it, they don't listen to the students answer the questions. What we've got to do is listen to how you think about stuff. So treat yourself the same way that I treat students. Listen to do I know what the problem is? Do I know what kind of project is? Do I know where I am? Can I identify root cause? Can I come up with a relative approach that I would use in the real world? If you can do those things and then you go to the answer and go, that's kind of the flavor that I was looking at, and you get it relatively right, you're on the right path. So that's awesome. Keep the question coming. Marcus asks, if you have 48 hours before the exam, what's your priority? 24 hours. Now, I like this question, Marcus. We don't have, you and I don't have 48 hours. We got a little bit longer than that. We're going to do this thing. You know that. But if we only had 48 hours, I'm going to take it in a couple different ways. I'm going to say that we walked in. Could I get somebody through the exam in 48 hours? First, I got to have 35-hour contact hours, so it's going to be hard. We'd have to do a lot of studying to technically be ready. But could we get through in 48 hours? Absolutely. Probably. The sleeping would be difficult, but the content could go in. Okay. So what you would need to do in the last 48 hours is I would focus on how you approach questions. I would really have a deep understanding of a couple different areas. These are the areas. First of all, I would have a strong understanding of how we handle change. Okay. A big understanding of that. Because of 180 questions, a large majority of them are going to challenge you about how you think about the change in a project. Because think about it, like, what we're doing in that is we're saying, in the different environments, agile, waterfall, hybrid, how do I deal with change? How do I deal with small changes? How do I deal with medium changes? How do I deal with catastrophic big changes? If I had 48 hours, I'm not scared. If I had somebody that came to me and you got 48 hours, I can get you through. It's not a big deal. We would talk about how we approach change and how we deal with change. That's going to be a good number of questions, 11% of the questions, something like that. Second thing I would work down on is, how well do I understand the mechanism of Agile? What are the artifacts? What are the roles? How does it work? What's the philosophy? What's servant leadership? How does it all work? If I nail down that part of Agile, it's 50% of the exam. If I really understand it, it doesn't take that long to go through. And if you learn from the right person, it's really logical. It's really empowering. So with 48 hours, we got to be judicious. So number one, change. Number two, Agile. Number three, I'm going to do four, would be the flows on there. Not all the flows. I love Ricardo Vargas, but my flows are better because it is selective in what goes through there. So I walk through 7 flows that I've distilled down by listening to, people's responses on the exam, watching them solve questions, making sure that things make sense. And that's how I organize my class through these flows. Like, I would teach you the flows, boom, 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 and how things go through there, because these are the normal channels through a project that we must nail down. How to deal with change, how to deal with stakeholder engagement, how to deal with all these things, initiating, close, all these different areas, deliverable flows, all these different things. 7 flows, I've worked them out. I would nail that down. And then lastly, I would get really good. I'd focus on my process for solving questions. What's my approach for dealing with every single question? Because you have to be a little bit like a relief pitcher in baseball during the exam. But you're going to throw a lot of pitches, and they're going to get some home runs hit off of you, meaning it's going to go sideways. Even the best students have a bad question or two. And it's how we react to those questions that really matters. And it's how we work through the questions that dictate our speed, our accuracy, and everything else, okay? So we got to go through those. All right? Do they even ask about process? Yes. I'm sorry. I'm assuming you've been through the whole course first. You're just 2 days away from the exam and you want to know what you're thinking about. Sorry, dude. I should have read that before I went on. All right. So let me frame it differently. If you've already gotten through the course, and I'll get your question in a second, Joe. What do you do the last 2 days? Well, the last day, real simple. Take a nap, drink a Coke, take a walk, go to the beach, watch a movie, party, whatever you want to do. You don't have to do anything. It's clear the mind, relax, and know you put in the work and know you can succeed. Do some yoga, do some breathing like we teach you. Be calm, be humble, yet confident, and get ready to destroy it the next day. So that's the last day. Day before that, we just want to brush up on the key areas on our evaporating data dump. That's the areas where we just don't feel totally confident. We want to nail those down. And what I would really do is I would teach the day before last. I would find an opportunity to find someone who doesn't know as much about it as you, and I'd share with them the things that you really love about the content. Now, no one in the world has ever said that, whatever, but I know that if you can explain things come together easier. It takes time. And honestly, it takes like a little openness. You have to be open to get on the internet machine and spout your ideas, dude, or explain it. You have to actually care for the other person, and you have to actually put yourself second and just try to get the content out in a way that makes sense. And by doing that, as a dude that has to talk all day and explain stuff, things start to come together or they don't. And then when they don't, you have a real life, oh, isn't that awesome? Because you go like, I don't understand this and I can get some help. So I'd explain things. I'd choose the thing that you really love and I'd explain it to somebody. Then I'd choose the things that you don't really have a great understanding in, and I try to explain that too and try to work through it. At the end of the day, the last 48 hours is a breeze because we got it done there. But I put ourselves second on the second day, and I'd start teaching a little bit, and I'd just be gracious and ready to go. Last day, take a nap, watch a movie. I saw Black Widow. It was a good movie. I like that one. And thanks. Joe said, I love that advice that teaches to learn. Yes, sir. I think the big thing about teaching, I'm not a classically trained teacher. I just happen to be the best PMP teacher in the world. That's the way it goes. And so the thing is, what I have to do to teach is just explain things in the simplest way possible. Fancy ain't good. Simple is better. Like today, in a question, what we did was we were talking about user stories. And they had a trend of user stories that were ginormous and big and all that stuff. And people were like, I can't get understanding. I can't do these things. And basically we broke it down to be like, hey, you eaten lunch before? Yeah, man. How long's lunch? Let's just say it's an hour. Okay. Time box. Now you get a big plate. Cool. It's like a user story. Something you got to complete. Kind of different. Doesn't really produce value. I guess it does inside your body, get you nutrients and stuff like that. But imagine you went to a buffet and you just piled that baby high. And I'm just using this example as a way to teach stuff. And it kind of helps you understand time boxing. All right. And so you bring that plate to the table and you said like, hey man, I've been going to lunch for like 2 weeks. And what I've noticed is the people around the table at this buffet, they never finish their plate. And the thing here is like, we've got to produce plates. We got to put the clean plate club. That's our increment that we would do. And if we said, man, it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse, what do we need to do to complete stuff? Now, one side of it, if we just looked at the user stories, might say, well, we got to work faster. We got to work harder. We got to find better ways to do the work. We got to do those things. Sure, maybe, who knows? And it might be a specialization. Maybe I'm just not good at eating sushi. Not good, pretty good at it. Not true. I mean, I'm pretty good at it. No, it's not that the plate needs to be like consumed faster. A lot of times we need to think about it this way, the user story. If we're not completing them, just as an example, maybe we break it up. Maybe we haven't understood the story enough. Maybe we haven't put the pressure to it. Maybe we haven't had enough conversations to distill it down. And so the example that I use, instead of like a giant plate where we pile things on like a buffet, maybe we went to tapas plates, right? Like that little Spanish thing where you have all those little cool little dishes. And if our goal was to produce, boom, 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 continuous flow of work, and our work was eating in a sense, like we would have the tapas plates out there instead of one ginormous plate like I like, we'd have the tapas plates. And we'd be eating a little bit and boom, production, boom, production. So our way of operating would be different. So the learning would be, could I find a way? And that one worked. I don't know if it worked now because it's all contextual, but it was a way to break it down, plates, eating food, a buffet, tapas, all that stuff, to break it down in a way that made sense. Now, this stuff doesn't have to be fancy, because all it is people like you and me finding better ways to get stuff done. That's life. All right. I love that idea too. Thank you, sirs. So Joe said, so knowing the artifacts for each methodology is more important than processes and IDOs. I mean, the artifacts of Agile, yeah, because those are like very structural things, like what happens to go through. I do recommend that students understand all the processes. Do they look at IDOs the way that everybody else does? My students? No, we don't look at IDOs. We don't look at IDOs. But I guarantee you that every one of our students understands the IDO more than everybody else. That's not bragging or anything, but it's the way it goes about it. Because if you think about IDOs like it's something that you have to accomplish, memorize, you may get there. But in reality, you haven't got anywhere. Okay? If you set the goal being, I have to remember the IDOs, you'll probably achieve it. But who gives a shit? Right? And so in reality, could I pull a random one up? Let's just say develop schedule. Man, there's a lot in there. And it's a good one. Develop schedule. What would be the first question you would ask? You say, hey, man, just break it down for me. I'm a newbie. Why? Why are we doing develop schedule? So anything, I love the IDOs. I don't want them ever to go away, but I want people to use them the right way. I mean, just my theory, right? And so I want them to say why. And I want them to create their own IDOs in a sense. And not that you have to be perfect and get every single one of them. That's not the purpose. What I would like you to do and think through, and what your challenge is not, just get over being perfect. There is no perfect. One person, one group's in, a belief. Now, the big picture I agree with. The granular details, it's all negotiable. So what I would prefer someone to do with IDOs is not look at them, and try, assumption log is here and assumption log's there and basis of estimates. Well, that's an important one. But like the rest of them, like, why are they there? The question is, why are they there? And I think you should get there not by looking and validating, why is duration estimates there on developed schedule? Why is that there? I think that the way you should go about it is say, what's the purpose of developed schedule? Okay. You break it down in your words and you say, in order to do that, start with the output first. What are we trying to produce? What's the increment in a sense, right? And then from that, if we were doing that, what's the math equation? What do I need raw materials? And then how would I transfer that raw material into an output? And that outcome is what we really care about. That's the why. So the new PMBOK, ain't nothing changed for me and us, because we've been thinking outcomes the entire time. Not just what are the outputs that are produced by each process. It's why are we doing it? How does it help us get close to smiles on our customer's face? That's it. So as Scott continues to rant, what else we got? All right. So, one thing I saw was like, how are PMP exam questions? This is what I learned yesterday. How are PMP exam questions created? And so we asked the woman who controls the team that does the magic. And what she said was, they come from the community of the project management world. Individuals submit questions, A, B, C, D, answer, whatever's. They cite where they come from as far as like, what content it's related to for the content outline. And then they go and they get vetted. So that's super awesome, because everybody thinks that they're just like really crazy, evil person at PMI that's just devilish, that wants to throw things at people. They didn't say that. These come from normal people. And where do normal people work? They work in the real world. So there is no, this is the PMI way. No, these are real world questions. Isn't that cool? Another question came in. That was seriously interesting yesterday. I seriously thought it was way more evil than the process is. Yeah, and ain't no evil in the PMBOK. PMBOK's there to help you. The people are there to help you. So the other thing is just breaking down barriers and thoughts in people's minds. Is the PMBOK or is the PMP based solely on the PMBOK? No. Like Gina and Alejandra were very, very clear that it is one of multiple sources that inform the content outline, that inform the exam. So while it does inform, this is the previous version, like how we think about stuff, going and memorizing, it is not the end all be all. Like you must interpret, you must understand, you must go there. So that's awesome. And then let's ask more questions, keep them going. What's the biggest thing that you guys have out there? What's the biggest question that you're worried about? Tell me, please. And so they said, does it change the PMP exam? No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Keep getting up. Focus on value. Focus on understanding. I have a coaching call on Friday. Can I walk through what those are like? Can you walk through what those are like? Yes, sir. So, Marcus, your coaching call on Friday is called an accountability call. And this is just because it's my accelerator system. All right. So let me tell you why, first of all. All right. So what I realized in getting people through quickly, efficiently, and having to actually like ace the exam and really be like super passionate at the end about project management being good, what I realized is there's different things that we must serve. All right. We must give them a really strong content understanding, the why behind everything. They got to internalize it. So I handle that with the teaching and the videos and things like that. Then the other thing that we realized is we've got to give feedback loops to students. We've got to give them the opportunity to take the material, make it theirs, talk through it in a comfortable environment that they work through and they get better at. Those are the hard question made easy calls that everybody's copying in the world. Good for them. Keep copying me. And like the other thing, so that's what we go through there. And you went through one today, Marcus, where we let you talk. Just talk, brother. Just work it out. We're going to talk it out. If you get held up, there's other people on the call that are going to help you make sense of it or do their best. Now, that's the second thing. Get good, get comfortable with difficult questions. Learn the logic, learn the process. So we had the first thing is get good at the content, get good at the foundations, make it yours. That's the teaching that I do. Break it down, make it visual. The second thing is get good at how we solve problems and get comfortable with dealing with ambiguity and navigating through it so that you build your understanding and your confidence that I can do this. Now, the third thing is people work best on a plan that works for them, not for me. Why would I put you on a schedule that's my schedule? Because I got to drink coffee at 5 o'clock or whatever. I got to have you study this, or I got to have you do it in 3 weeks because I got to get another student in. Who cares about me? Marcus, it's you that matters, brother. It's the other people that matter. You're on the schedule call with the accountability coach so that you guys can define what the perfect pace is for you. And that you can get a plan that is aligned to you and that you can work on that plan and have somebody holding your hand to say, dude, we're doing this together. You, me, Scott, and Jesus. Like we're going here and we're going to get there. Okay. And so that is what we're trying to do there. Hey, I need to get done by this day. I got this much time. This is what I'm scared about. This is my past. I'm ready to roll. Salvador is going to help you whip out a plan that's going to work for you. Okay. And then what he's going to do is say, hey, man, got to stick to it. But if you're having problems, tell me about it. We'll adjust and we'll overcome. So when you come back to those calls, you say, dude, I don't understand this. Sweet. Tell me about it. Let's walk it through. Let me break it down for you. Let's figure this out so that you can pace it through, cross that finish line when it's over. That is it. Have I heard there's less math? There's about 6, 7 EVM questions. Nail them down. Get good at EVM. Make you better at your life and your job. EVM's fun. Friends and family, I've loved this. I got to go to a coaching call. See you guys soon. If you want to go to a coaching call with me and just see how it is and let me see your brain, squeeze your brain, make you better, come on with a custom plan. All you got to do at any time, day, night, weekend, whenever, is either email me, Scott at PMmasterPrep.com. Call me, 757-759-5282, literal phone number. Come and talk to me, text or whatever. Or go to my site, PMmasterPrep.com, and either apply for the accelerator and just talk to me, or you hit get Scott's help right now. You get Scott's help right now, and we talk it out. Ain't nobody better at this than me, than in the world than me to help you. Let's do it. I'm here to help you. I got to go coaching call. Adios, muchachos.